Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is dustinkreis, and today we're going to do another game discussion over a game again that I can't show you because I guess I could pull down one of the many copies of this game that I have, but who cares, you know. Dragon Quest II just released not too long ago on iOS and Android, and it's a little bit of a trepidatious thing because on the one hand, I really wish these games would come out on like the Vita or something like that. But for these old Dragon Quest games, smartphones really are kind of perfect for these games. I don't know about the version of Dragon Quest IV and Dragon Quest VIII on there. I don't know about playing those Dragon Quest games, especially 8. 8 needs to be on the Vita. But like Dragon Quest I, Dragon Quest II, and here soon Dragon Quest III, the Erdrick or Lodo trilogy, if you will, feels just perfect on iPhones. And it's such a weird thing for me to say because, over in Japan, mobile gaming is a lot more accepted than it is over here. It's really just kind of slowly taking root over here, but so there is some distance kept from like iOS and Android. But if they keep putting out ports of games like this and Lunar, the Silver Star Story Touch version, and I think Chance played the iPhone version of Vey and really liked that. I need to look into that. But it's just kind of perfect to have these Dragon Quest games on the go. There's been a lot of times where I've been in situations where carrying like a DS or something like that might be considered somewhat rude, but apparently, in groups of people, it's no longer rude to sit there and look at your phone. It's just a kind of a weird social thing now. It's not considered rude to be looking at your phone. So in certain situations where I've just had my phone on me and, point out a DS, that still seems, that's still looked upon as rude and you're not engaging in other people. But a phone is kind of an innocuous thing now. And I would sit down and play Dragon Quest II for a bit. And I gotta tell you, as much crap as I give Dragon Quest II, because it is kind of a weird game that they were trying to expand what the first game did, and especially if you go back and play the NES version, there's a lot of balancing issues. That game is just hard. You're always outnumbered, and the enemies are just ridiculously strong. The other two characters in your party are incredibly weak, and it feels like the main character is just taking the brunt of the adventure, while the other two just kind of tag along and die all the time. So, nice motorcycle there. So I was really looking forward to this port of Dragon Quest II because I hoped it rebalanced the game in kind of the same way that Dragon Quest I did on the mobile platform, because it kind of nerfed that game a little too much for my taste, but for Dragon Quest II, it actually feels just about right. When I got to Rhone, which in this game has been renamed Redark, which I think Rhone is a much better name, and I will continue to refer to that area as Rhone. When I got there, in the NES version, that place was just brutal. Like, you'd be out fighting like 2 battles and then someone would die and you have to go back and heal them, then go back, and it was just a brutal, brutal place. And in the iOS version, it was challenging, but it wasn't overly hard. I can only think of a couple times that I actually got wiped out, and that was because someone cast the kamikaze spell. These enemies will just cast the kamikaze spell, and it always works for some reason. If you cast that spell, it hardly ever works, but or maybe it's not that one. Maybe, I can't remember what it is, but it always seems like the enemy spells work so well, and then your spells don't. But that area was not as hard. I did still get my ass kicked by Malroth, though. Hargon's always been a punk. But Malroth, the first time I went up against Malroth, he wiped me out. It took a while into the battle to do it, but finally he got the upper hand and started really dealing some good damage to me and wiped me out. But then I just leveled up. I think by the end of it, my characters, the first two characters, the hero and then the prince, were like level 40s, and then the princess was like high level 30s, like 38 or 39, somewhere around there. And when I went back in there and pretty much, handed Malroth his ass. But yeah, I had a great time playing it. The story picks up like 100 years after the original Dragon Quest, and one of the coolest things about Dragon Quest II is that you can go back to the world of Dragon Quest I. And of course for this game it's shrunk down a little bit, but there's still that sort of visceral thrill of exploring around that continent because the music changes. And I remember playing the NES version when I was a kid, and I got there and I heard the original, Dragon Warrior 1 music, because back in the day it was called Dragon Warrior. And I was just like, this big smile came across my face, and I was like, oh, I feel like I'm home, because I spent so much time playing Dragon Warrior 1 that in the second game, that was just really awesome to me. So it picks up 100 years later, and there's a new menace out there, Hargon, who is attacking the kingdoms of the world in an attempt to take over the world. It's the same RPG story. But the cool thing about Dragon Quest II, and it really, I guess it came with the NES version. I don't think the original Japanese version had the intro of the attack on Moonbrook. But it really does have, it feels like it has kind of cinematics, and the first game had none of that, The second game, you kind of start off with this introductory storyline thing. I remember being a kid just thinking that was so cool, it was a big deal for some reason to have these little quote-unquote cinematics. And then when you think about Dragon Quest in and of itself, it's not really a cinematic game, but to have that in there, really awesome stuff. And then, of course, the party system, having 2 more people, even though back in the day they felt like, marshmallows that couldn't do anything. In this game, they really do feel a lot more powerful. They level quicker. It feels like the Prince of Cannock can actually deal some damage this time around. The princess actually has decent HP for most of the game, and her spells deal a good amount of damage. So, whereas in the first game, or I should say the first version of the game, you always felt at a disadvantage in battles. In this one, it feels more evened out. And that's a great thing, because Dragon Quest II, it took me, I don't know, maybe 20 years? That can't be right. Maybe 20-ish years or something like that to beat it, because it was just such an unbalanced game, and I'd get to Roan and just start getting hammered on, and I'd just be like, I'm done with this, and I'd put down the controller, and I'd probably go play Dragon Quest III again or something. It just took forever for me to finally sit down and have the patience and the wherewithal to suffer through that game. But much like the original Dragon Quest port on iOS, or I should just say the mobile platforms, because it's on Android as well, this does feel like the definitive version. With the graphics, you get those slightly better than Super Nintendo graphics. Really, really evokes the Super Nintendo ports of the game, which I think still, the iOS, I can't wait for the iOS version of Dragon Quest III. I'm sorry. Call me a fanboy, whatever. Dragon Quest III is one of those games to me that it blew my brain completely out of my skull when I was a kid. And to have it on my phone and be running around, different places, I can't friggin' wait. It's probably the game I'm most looking forward to for the remainder of the year. But that's kind of a weird thing to say too. But yeah, just it really is beautiful. The music has that beautiful symphonic soundtrack that the first one had. This is a game that you want to put your earbuds in and play, because the music is really good. I don't know what else to say about this game. I think I've talked about the Dragon Quest series throughout my entire YouTube career and the podcast career, but this is one that I've always had a problem with. I've always had a problem with Dragon Quest II, and now I finally played a version that I think I can wholeheartedly recommend to people. You know, whenever I talk about Dragon Quest with people, I'd always say, try 3, try 4, try the Super Nintendo ones, you know. 2 would never be one that I would recommend to other people. It's kind of like Final Fantasy 2, the real Final Fantasy 2, not the one that was released here in America. It's not the first Final Fantasy you would recommend to somebody. And the same thing is with Dragon Quest 2, but now with this iOS port, except for one glaring issue, and I'll talk about that here in a second, I wholeheartedly say give this a shot. $5 on iOS. The one glaring issue, and they could of course fix this with a patch, and a lot of people have been talking about it on the reviews on the App Store, is that every now and then you'll just go into a town and you'll go up to like an inn or the weapon shop or something, and whenever you start to talk to somebody across the counter, even I think the churches as well, the game will just crash. And you're thinking, oh my god, that would be the most infuriating thing ever. Luckily, every time you enter, I think it's every time you enter a town, I don't know about dungeons, but every time you enter a town, the game autosaves for you. So you can just resume from autosave and you'll be at the town that you went into in the first place. So I don't know exactly how to fix the bug. It seems like if you use the zoom spell and go to a different town, then you can go to the inn and it'll work fine. That's kind of how I did it. If I ever ran into a problem where I crashed the game, instead of being in that town, I would just zoom to another town and be able to do everything I wanted. Or, you know, zoom to that town, talk to the people at the inn, stay at the inn, then zoom back to that town and be able to talk to the people at the weapon shop that I couldn't before. It's a weird thing. Hopefully they patch it sometime. I got really excited because I saw an update on the the App Store for. I just saw Dragon Quest. I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. And then I saw what it was, and it was an update for the Dragon Quest 1 game to change the name from Dragon Quest 1 to just Dragon Quest. And I was like, fuck, fix this, you know. So aside from that glaring, I mean, it is kind of a glaring issue, but with the autosave, and which I think the zooming to a different town works most of the time, with that, there's ways around that, and it's not that big of an issue with that autosave feature. So it's not as bad as it sounds, but it's still infuriating that a great port of what I consider to be kind of a bad, not a bad game, but sort of a mediocre game in the series, a great port that elevates it up to the rest of the series would be marred by that kind of glaring omission. But anyway, Dragon Quest 2 on the mobile platforms, $5. You know, you can get a cheeseburger that costs more than that. So definitely a lot of fun. Not as long of a game, and that's really thankful to the rebalancing issues, because Dragon Quest 2 was such a grind, especially when you got to Rune. It was just grind. And this one, there's still grinding to be had, especially for money, because the Staff of Thunder trick does not work in this port. I was like, god damn it, because it was so easy to keep fighting the, what were they, Mad Clowns in the jail cell, and you get the Staff of Thunder, you sell it, you get all that money, and then you like stay at the inn and go back into the jail cell, and he's there again with another Staff of Thunder. And that was great in the NES version, because things cost a lot of money, and it's very hard to get money in Dragon Quest, especially when you're dying all the time. So unfortunately that trick doesn't work, but by the end of it I had like 30 or 40,000 banked. So it wasn't a big deal making money in that game. But anyway, definitely check it out. It's good to see Dragon Quest still being brought out here. I still really want the 3DS port of Dragon Quest 7. I'm not so much concerned with Dragon Quest 10 anymore, because I'm just not a MMO player, and I have a copy of the Wii version up there in my little Dragon Quest shrine. Hi buddy, why don't you come here and stop scratching? And but I really want Dragon Quest 11 when it comes out, because it's probably going to be a PS4 game. And I really hope that it's like HD Dragon Quest 8, you know, that kind of graphics and stuff. Really looking forward to that. So hopefully we get that stuff. Hopefully get Dragon Quest Heroes. But for now, These iOS ports of the first two games are pretty awesome, and they're pretty great for mobile play. As far as Dragon Quest IV and Dragon Quest VIII goes on the mobile platforms, I can't say for those. I don't know. But these first two games are really awesome, and it really has me looking forward to the release of my favorite Dragon Quest game, which is Dragon Quest III on iOS. So anyway, that is it for this video. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.